I'm back home, and cannabis is in the headlines. Have I been putting myself at more risk than I thought? Reports suggest one spliff can cause madness. Back in the 30s, they were saying the same thing. Is it all scaremongering, or can cannabis make you mad? How strong is the evidence that cannabis contributes to psychosis? Professor Robin Murray is at the forefront of British research into the matter at the Institute of Psychiatry. Hello, Professor Murray. Nice to meet you. I have to say, I'm quite scared about the headlines I've been reading. There's one that said, psycho risk, one joint. What do you think about these scary headlines?
I think probably the risk of taking one joint and going psychotic is the equivalent of taking one drink of wine and becoming alcoholic. So it's negligible. It's ridiculous. Cannabis taken regularly, several joints a day over a period of years, will in fact increase one's risk up to doubling it. Some people have a greater liability to going psychotic on cannabis, whereas other people seem to be able to smoke without really coming to any great harm at all. People vary in their genetic liability, and then there are the environment, the social factors, whether they have a really difficult life. These sort of factors also contribute, but cannabis may add to these factors and tip them over the edge into psychosis.
So though long-term use of cannabis could trigger psychosis, the more lurid headlines are wrong. But what about all those newspaper claims that cannabis on our street has become much stronger? Is that true or not? I'm going to a forensic lab where drugs seized in police raids end up. Dr. Phil Yates is a forensic drug scientist and is an expert on the cannabis sold on Britain's streets.
This is where items are kept when we first receive them from the police.
All sorts of drugs in there, it's not just cannabis, all sorts.
Exactly, right. Everything that we receive, whatever drug type it is.
Little cannabis plant is there.
Oh yeah, yeah. And here we have an example of some flowering tops, which you can have a look down the microscope if you like.
They're like little kind of beads.
Yes, that's right. And those are what is known as the resin glands. And if you look at it under a higher powered microscope, that's what they actually look like. They kind of look a bit like mushrooms, where you've got a stalk with a little sort of dumpy donut-shaped thing on the top.
Yeah.
And they contain the drug.
What I really want to know, though, is it stronger than it used to be?
Well, the short answer to that question is yes. The majority of the cannabis that we see in the UK these days is the homegrown, genetically altered type, which can contain 10 to 15% THC typically. If you compare that to the naturally grown cannabis that would be imported from abroad, that would typically contain 3 to 5% THC. So in comparison, it's 3 to 4 times stronger. A worrying trend that we have seen in the last year or so in the UK is cannabis tops, which have been adulterated with tiny glass beads. And if you imagine you're inhaling tiny red-hot beads into your lungs, I'm sure it can't do you any good.
With cannabis production in the hands of criminals, it's no surprise they happily add glass balls to make their dope look stronger. So whilst 15 million people may enjoy cannabis, do they really know what they're getting? 3 cannabis farms are raided every day in Britain. Skunk, which is cannabis grown specifically for its high THC, is on the rise. There's now so much grown here that for the first time, Britain is exporting the drug. Out on the street, people also think it's getting stronger and that it can cause problems.
Skunk is a very powerful drug. Do you want me to tell you all the things that it does to me, seriously?
Yeah, tell me.
Like, I'm in my house, like, I hear a helicopter, I'm looking out the window, like, it does all madnesses to me, makes me paranoid.
24/7?
Sometimes I can just be normal, like smoking, I'm very happy, and then after, my mum, she might say something like, oh, Rich! Like, and then I'll just, whoa! Whoa! Like, that's all the things it does to you, seriously. It's a dangerous thing. If you're 13 or younger, stay away from it till you're like 21 or something, till you know what it actually... Because all the 13-year-old kids like on the streets these days are walking around, big ones, like, they don't know what it's doing to their brains. Seriously, take it from someone with a very lot of experience.
It's stronger than before it used to be, because it's got too much chemicals added to it and it fucks up your head. You lose memory in your head.
But are these views right? Is it really true that the skunk out there can play havoc with your mind? Here at the Institute of Psychiatry, I've agreed to take part in a unique medical trial designed to find out. It's part of their ongoing research into the link between stronger cannabis and psychosis. The scientists are interested in the effects of the ratio between the two main components of cannabis, THC and cannabinoid. So on one day, I'm being injected with pure THC, something like ultra-high potency skunk. On the other day, I get a mixture of THC and cannabinoid, more like the natural makeup of the cannabis plant. When I get the injections, I don't know what I'm getting. It turns out that this one is a mixture of THC and cannabinoid. After 10 minutes, it hits me. With the THC and cannabinoid, no matter how hard I try to take the experiment seriously, it all seems hilarious.
I'll get you something a bit softer than that.
Sorry.
What does it feel like? It looks very enjoyable.
My God, it's fun. It's amazing. Amazing. With the pure THC, it's a different story. It's horrible. It's like being at a funeral. Worse. It's sort of like, it's just so depressing. You'd want to, top yourself. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of morbid. After 15 minutes, I begin a series of psychological tests designed to measure whether I've become psychotic, and if so, how severely. I feel agitated? No. On the THC and cannabinoid mixture, I seem really flippant. On this drug, I just don't care. I'm experiencing profound insights. Bollocks. I'm worried the state of mind won't end. I don't want it to end. This experience is frightening. Strong. I feel agitated. Yeah. I do. But with the pure THC, I'm suspicious, introverted, weird. Every question seems to have a double meaning. Trouble is, my attention's like really, it's like massively into just a word or something. It's like, but not in a happy. It's like in a morbid. Morbid is. That's how I feel. Morbid. It's an anxiety. It's like a panic attack. Do you know what I mean? It's like you ask me a question. I'm thinking, I don't know the answer. I'm just one of many volunteers taking part in this trial. The doctors are hoping to answer some of the really important questions about cannabis and psychosis. For example, do people react differently to exactly the same dose of THC? And can cannabinoid reduce the psychotic effect of THC? It certainly made me uncontrollably giggly. 2 hours later, the effects have worn off. So just how psychotic did I get? The psychiatrists use a standard test which measures changes in psychotic symptoms.
And on the first day you scored 1. Your change from baseline to the peak experience was 1, which is insignificant. Above 4 is thought to be clinically significant. Above 4 would be what you might expect in schizophrenic psychosis, and you scored 14 on the second day. So you were really quite persecuted, and really it felt quite unpleasant.
I scored 14. An increase of 14 points on pure THC was very high and suggests that the new breeds of skunk can play havoc with your mind. But with no history of mental illness and no predisposition to schizophrenia, I was at no long-term risk. The real worry is for heavy users of skunk. The research at the Institute of Psychiatry is beginning to unravel the way cannabis really works on the mind. And what's become clear to me over this whole journey is that there are a whole range of different varieties and different strengths of cannabis out there, and they can have wildly different effects.
You have the pro-cannabis lobby who say cannabis is a sacred boon to mankind. It has no adverse effects. It's hardly even a drug. It's something that will enhance your life. And then you have the protagonists or the prohibitionists who think it's the devil's construction, cannabis, that, as you say, one puff and you go mad. I mean, each of these are equally ridiculous, and I think that has been the difficulty, that somehow or other there's been an ideological dispute and relatively little research.
There's no doubt that cannabis, like alcohol, is a potent drug. And whatever the outcome of the debate about the toughening up of the anti-cannabis laws, millions of people are still going to use it. The scary thing is that, unlike Amsterdam, many people here just don't know what they're buying and the risks they're taking. So, I've come to my conclusion. Street skunk is definitely off my menu, and I'm back to my drug of choice.